Hey everybody, I'm still getting set up here, but let's see. I am going to put a question up and let's see how that goes. Let's see if I can. Nope, don't want to do that. I just wanted to kind of blur the background a bit, but it might not work. Uh, yep, can't do that. See, all things you want to try to figure out before you get going. Ah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Let's see though. Give me a quick confirmation that you can hear me. That would be nice. I am going to share that. There we go. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Dylan and Chase. Ooh, what is this little thing next to your names? Hi, Daniel. Thanks for being a member, Daniel. Very cool. What does this say? Oh, there's some sort of top fans thing. So yes, you can compete for a fake trophy, I guess, during this. So we are going to do some questions and stuff like that. We'll talk about the test. We'll talk about some things to do before the August SAT. But we are going to wait a couple minutes. Not supposed to start till 5 o'clock my time. So we'll give people a minute or two to join. And hopefully, let's see, this looks pretty good. And I am good. I feel good for considering you got a week to go before the test. Usually this is a very stressful time, but I feel on top of things, which is pretty good. What about vocabulary? Well, study words. Yes, yes, yes. Study words. That is not easy to do, but it is important. And so I'll put this little question here so people can kind of start working on something while we're talking. And feel free to ask questions. I would say stay away from questions that are like, I have this score. I have a 1390. I have a 1420. Can I get a 1500? Can I get a 1550? I will talk a bit about those things, but I would say that that is a very open-ended question. Even if I had lots of information, that's always hard to say. As far as where to study vocabulary, the easiest place to do that is going to be the SAT questions that you work on. Literally anytime you encounter a word that you've never seen before, you should use it. You should try your best to, look it up. Obviously, don't look it up while you're working on the question. See if you can work around that unknown as you go. And hopefully, yes, then you can kind of figure it out even if you don't have a good definition of the word. But that's definitely a great place to start. Is there's going to be plenty of words in not only the vocabulary specific questions in the SAT, but all those passages. Sometimes I feel like the transition questions kind of hinge on a difficult word sometimes. And, that's just one of those things that can throw you off for a question. If you're not, aware of a word and it really matters. Yeah, that stinks. That stinks. But I will move away from this question for 1 second. So don't worry. But if you are looking for more with the vocabulary, remember my website, seteletutoring.com, has this free library with all sorts of stuff here. And then look, hey, vocabulary, that's pretty cool. Go to vocabulary page. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it does have these kinds of sets that you can use to study. And it's a really good way to just learn new words. I've made these sets of 30 words, and I tried to do it in a way that I thought would be helpful. It's a little different is I've grouped words together that have similar meanings. The idea being that you learn the words in those groups. So this is one way to get some words. I think I can probably put this in the chat. Okay, so there we go there. And I can pin that to the top, it looks like. Boom. I think pinned. Yep. So there's some vocab. So let me go back to this other question. So try to work on this. I will talk about this at first because I know this is supposed to be a predictions video. And there's some predictions I can come up with based on this question. Some things that I think you should expect for the August SAT, the October SAT, the September. I forgot there's a September SAT this year. That's new. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to kind of use these skills, because remember, the most important thing about the SAT is it's very predictable. They don't change things that much. It may feel that way, but they're really not changing things. So just keep that in mind. Oh, wow. You guys have been chatting a lot while I've been just talking here. So we did that. They did add to the question bank. So that's the breaking news. There are new questions in the question bank. I have not had much time to look at them. I decided to do this live stream before the question bank was updated. So that was just a coincidence that it happened to be today that I'm doing this, and that yesterday they added those questions. And I don't think they added them till like late in the day, because I was on the question bank for other reasons earlier in the day, and everything looked normal. So I have seen some of the questions. I've worked on them. They seem like more SAT questions. Nothing exciting about them. But my advice is just don't rush into just doing a million questions. Right? Make sure you have a plan. Make sure if you're targeting a certain topic, you are trying to answer those questions in a way that's maybe a little bit different than what you've done before. So that's just a way to, yeah, just try to learn from mistakes, things like that. That's really important for the SAT. I'm going to actually do one thing before I start going to questions. What's the answer to the pyramid question? I'm going to make a poll and you guys can answer it. And that way we can see what you guys get. C and D and start poll. There you go. So that way you can interact a little bit. So I won't say, some of you already put answers in here, so I won't say just quite yet. I'll let people kind of look at that. They did add to the question bank. So back to the question bank thing. My hope is that this weekend, maybe a little bit tomorrow, I can start making some videos for some of the hard questions and kind of post those to my channel. So make sure you subscribe for that. And we'll see what we can do. But there's only a week left, so it does take time to go through those questions and make the videos. So I'll do the best I can. There's a million other things I've got to do, but that is a goal. So we'll try to do that. Let's see what else we got here. Yes. Now, one thing I hope we all know. Well, do I know when they're making new practice tests? I have no clue. That I've heard rumors. Maybe we'll get one in the beginning of next year, but yeah, no, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that's also a disappointment in some way. Remember that test 8, 9, and 10, when they released those, were kind of underwhelming because they were made up of tests that they had already discontinued. So that kind of was weird. But I don't think we're going to get any tests before the August SAT. Even if we did at this point, you shouldn't take it because there's a week left, and at a certain point, you're better off, not taking a practice test. Rest the brain, things like that. But yeah, there's probably not going to be a practice test, I would assume, until 2026. The thing with the question bank is I don't think there is any way to filter the new questions. So you got to just dig around and see if anything looks familiar. They added, as far as I know, questions for every topic, but again, I haven't really looked deep. I've looked at some of the reading ones because that's where I was most curious, but I haven't really examined it in any detail. But from what I saw, like I said, there's nothing exciting. They're just more questions. I'd be curious if some of you have looked at those, especially if you've taken an SAT, an official SAT before. I am curious if you recognize any of those questions. If they're ones that you're like, I think I had this on my real test. That's usually where they get new questions, is they retire old ones. So they might have been questions that were on tests before. So I would be curious if that's what's going on there. So yeah, I don't know how to filter. I'm sorry. I wish I had an answer to that. A couple of you guys are asking that. Cool. Yes, Wumbo works. You're welcome. Happy to help. Okay. Yeah, so just in terms of using the question bank, I do have a video on that. That is one of the best things on my channel. If you are new to the SAT, there's a reason that my channel starts with start your prep here, right? So start your prep here, like learn the strategies. As far as organizing, you can also start with this study plan here. And then in, where is it here? This, oh, wait, where is it? Somewhere in here. Essential info, SAT basics. This frequently asked questions playlist here has stuff about the question bank, how to use that, how the scoring works. So all this stuff is really essential. So I kind of organized it for people who are just getting started, but then practice test results, things like that. So make sure you're checking out some of these early playlists. There's some really good info in there about some of the basics, just how to do different things. Let's talk about this question. Feel free to keep asking other questions. We'll have plenty of time for random questions. I want to do some actual SAT questions with you guys. This is one I wrote. This is not something from the question bank as far as I know, but I will say it's not a particularly clever question. It's just, all right, we got a pyramid. Hopefully we all know a pyramid is this guy right here. That's a pyramid. Some people don't know that. They confuse the pyramid with the prism. The prism is the box. This is a rectangular prism specifically. A pyramid is a pointy thing, right? Just like the pointy things in Egypt. They're called pyramids. So people forget that. I don't know why. Learn the shape names. That's very important. So we got a pyramid, a square pyramid. So it's here. In fact, let me just be lazy about this. Let's do a little screenshot and grab it and drop it. And there we go. Cool. So put it up there. It's a little blurry. But the first thing that I would notice about this question, so let's get to some predictions here, right? What are some predictions that we want for the test? Well, one is that you're probably going to get some sort of geometry question where they do the most like annoying thing, which is they remove the dimensions for the shape, right? The width is X. What? That's annoying. How about we just make the width something simple to work with? Like, how about 2, right? Why don't we make the width a set number so we can actually think about this thing with some actual shapes? Now, I know it doesn't matter what number I pick because this X is carrying through through the question. So one of my favorite strategies, plug points into equations. Arithmetize is a version of that strategy where what we're doing is we're not given points, but we make them up ourselves. You have to, if you want to succeed in the hard questions, be able to arithmetize quickly and confidently. Very, very important. So right away, I notice there's a variable in the question. That same variable is appearing in the choices. It probably doesn't matter. So let me make something up. Now, since it's a square pyramid, that means this is 2. And the height of the square pyramid is equal to its width. So that means this is 2. So everything's 2. And then I want to get the surface area. So surface area is not that bad. And someone, I forget, maybe you're live streaming, but someone who comments quite frequently on my videos asked specifically for surface area of a pyramid. And my initial comment to that person was basically, it's not a big deal, right? Because what is a pyramid? It's a square plus 4 triangles. So a pyramid has nothing to do with the fact that, it's just a minor inconvenience. We just focus on the shape, right? So the square is easy, right? The square is a 2 by 2, right? So what's the area of that square is 4. Triangle's a little more annoying, right? Because we know that the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. However, we don't have the height. We have the base, which is 2. But we don't have the height because this height here is not part of the triangle. Look, that height is in the middle of the shape, but really the height is going to be on the outer edge. So we need to make sure we understand that we're not interested in the actual height. We're interested in what we might think of as the slant height, because I need to get the face here. So a good rule of thumb in geometry is if you can draw a picture and start putting stuff on it, because when you do that, even if you're not sure what it's going to do, it tends to move the question forward. Here's a great example where once I draw that line and realize that's the height that I want. So let's call that, let's just call that H now that we have our H's gone. We want to realize, well, that's not quite what I've got, but hey, if I were to just kind of connect some dots here, that looks an awful lot like a right triangle. And oh boy, right triangles, that's another great place to be in geometry, right? I want right triangles because then I can do simple things like Pythagorean theorem. And I know 2 of the legs because one of them is the shape is the number we made up. And the other is 1 because it's halfway across the base. So there you go. So 2 squared plus 1 squared is this height squared. So 2 squared is 4 plus 1 is 5 is equal to the height squared. So the height is root 5, right? So now plug points into equations. I have an equation. So there you go. And 1/2 and 2 cancels out. So that was one of the reasons I made it 2 as my base and length and not 1, as I knew I'd end up dividing it in half. You just kind of end up doing that at various points. So that means the area of one of these triangles is root 5. But remember, there's 4 of them, right? So I have the 4 for the square plus 4 of these. So my actual surface area of this shape is 4 plus 4 root 5. Now that's not an answer, but remember that's because we turned our x's into 2's. But if we plug a 2 in for all of these, well, 2 squared plus 3 or times 3. So 4 times 3 is not this, 12. 4 times 5 is 20, not this. And clearly we can see this root 3 isn't going to help us out here. So not that. But there you go. 2 squared is 4 plus 2 squared root 5. So there you go. 4 plus 4 root 5. That's the one. That's it. That's the whole thing. So not hard. This would not in any way bother me on the test. I would know to arithmetize immediately because yeah, that's the way to go. Oh, everyone's changing to D after I've already told you guys the answer. That doesn't do us any good. But look at the distribution of this. What's the answer to the pyramid question? That's pretty darn even. Almost 25% apiece there. So I would just say, like, it goes to show this is kind of a hard concept. But I would say this is a good example of a predictable hard question. Not in the sense that you should expect this on your SAT, but more that if I happened to see it, then I wouldn't be surprised. It's surface area. That's a fairly basic concept. And remember, surface area is just area. So it's rectangles and triangles. That's pretty basic. And then because I have this X that I don't care about, I'm going to arithmetize. That's very predictable. There will be lots of places where the hardest thing about the SAT question is they've removed the numbers, right? It's a math question, a math test, but they're removing numbers so you can't do math as easily. So Chase, I see you asking, how do you solve it without plugging points in? I'm not going to bother. You would just basically do all the same math, but you do it with X's. And oh my God, that would really be annoying. Because at least at this stage, right here, this 1 wouldn't be a 1. It would be X over 2. And now I'm throwing that in here and squaring that and dealing with the fractions. And oh my God, no, thank you. I bet I could do it, but I know it's going to increase the complexity and it's going to increase the chance that I make a mistake. And so you don't get extra points on the test for doing it like the real way, the College Board way. You just get the points for getting it right. And so we're always thinking, what way is going to get me those points quickly, efficiently, accurately, which is going to reduce the chance of me falling for a trap. All that stuff, that's going to be, all those things have to go into your calculus. And no, so XMDL, would this only work if you arithmetize with 2? No, try another number, go for it. Any number is going to work. Even if I had picked X equal 1, it would have worked. It would have been more annoying because then I would have had to deal with a fraction somewhere along the way, but it still would work. But you could also pick something weird, make it pi if you want, make it 317. It will not matter. Because the whole point is X is a variable. It can be any number. It represents any number. So we're just kind of using the laws of algebra to our advantage, right? If X represents any number, why deal with the hypothetical? Why not just make it some number that we like? Yeah. I don't know if you could intuitively guess it. I don't think I would. Remember, a big idea on the SAT in general is that, let me see if I can zoom out here and draw it a little bit. I hate how this does this. When I lose my little hand here. There it is. That's what I want. I want that hand. One thing to keep in mind, for the SAT in general, a good big picture strategy is thinking versus doing. Am I thinking about math or am I doing math? Doing is always better, right? And that's the point of plug points and equations, is rather than thinking about how this is going to work, thinking about formulas, I am doing things. I am seeing the numbers work through the equations. I can see it in a much more intuitive way. If I use algebra, I'm going to have numbers as well, but I'm also going to have all those letters I've got to carry around. And that really makes me nervous. So I'd really just rather not deal with that. It's just laziness. Honestly, it's productive laziness is really what it is. So yeah, try to think of it that way, and I think you'll be happier. Any other questions regarding this? Made a blunder with the height of the triangle. Yes, this is a prediction, a real prediction, is that it's common. I've seen it a couple times now that the SAT is going to try to confuse you between the height and the slant height. So slant height is when we have this kind of like height along the outside of the surface. It really only applies to pyramids and cones. Cones have a slant height, right? This little piece of the right triangle. But here it's more obvious that there's a right triangle involved with the cone. But that's definitely important. Yeah, like just be careful of that. That's one of those traps that hopefully if you do fall into it at some point, you just do it once. Okay. Okay, let's see. What should we do next? Should we just look at some questions here and let me catch up a little bit, and then we will do more questions. But surface area of a pyramid, I do not use a formula. Nope, don't use one, right? Did I use a formula here? No, I just used formula for a rectangle or a square in this case, and the formula of a triangle, both of which given to you in the reference chart. My main thing with anything SAT related is I want to memorize as little as possible because just speaking as a tutor with a lot of experience, uh, we all suck at memorizing things is really what it comes down to. We think we're good at it, but we're not so good. And a lot of times, this gets back to the thinking versus doing. We might think we're doing it right. We might feel like we're solving correctly, but we might have a bad memory of something. So the less we have to memorize, the better, because it reduces the chance we misremember. But unfortunately, there are cases where we just need to know stuff. Luckily, geometry is not one of them because they give it all to us. So there's a lot there. So I do not think you need to memorize the formulas for surface area for really anything. You just need to understand surface area as a concept. That's the same as with perimeter. Perimeter is not a thing that you really need to memorize formulas. It's much more about the concept. Speaking of, let's do another question. I'll put it up and I'll still answer some questions, but at least you guys can think about some stuff here. Here's another one. Make another poll. I wish that I could just, retype and do ABC, but it makes me do it separate every time. Just kind of annoying. YouTube, get on that. There you go. Perimeter question. Yes. AS Arjith is right. Just don't use a formula. Think conceptually. Think conceptually. Perimeter, you don't need a formula. Just add up all the outsides. Same with surface area. Add up all the faces because they could easily do different things. Where am I getting these questions from? My own mind. My own mind. I made them up. I made these questions up. Now, they're not that clever. I would say that the surface area one, the College Board could have easily made something like that up. It's just, a pyramid is a pyramid. And I'm certainly inspired by College Board questions. It's you take enough SATs, you kind of know what they're going for. So that kind of thing is important. But this is the benefit, if I can shamelessly plug some stuff, this is the benefit of becoming a channel member, is that you have access to tons of questions that I have written. So when you run out of the question bank questions, you get access to ones that I've written. There's literally hundreds in there right now. Some people in the live stream here are channel members. So thank you to you guys for supporting the channel. And I hope it's helping. If you have, suggestions, feel free to share them. But it's a great way to get more practice. Each question comes with a video explanation. And if you want to see what that's all like, I will say that I'm going to switch away for a second here. All of these strategy series ones, if you go in, don't make noise. Okay, cool. If you go to the, here you go. In the description of these things, practice this topic with new questions written for channel members. There's a playlist. And at most, pretty much all these ones for the strategy series, the first 5 I made free, so you guys can check them out and get some questions there. So pretty much every episode of the strategy series has some free questions that I've written that you can use. Any of my videos that are lessons or anything, those are also all questions that I've written, so there's no spoilers. If there is a spoiler, it's going to say it in the description. So always remember that too. It's in the description. And I'm very excited for this too. I can show this. Let me just put this back up for a sec. And we will be doing some passages. Yes, we'll be doing some passages. So let's take a look here. Yeah, speaking question bank, they just added over 100. Yes, they did. Yes, not available. I always love your name. Yes, this will be in the channel. I'll post it, I think, after it takes a little bit to process, but it'll post once we're done. And I won't go over the question bank questions in this. Maybe I'll do another live stream before the August SAT. Let's see what the calendar holds. But I might be able to do some of those questions live, talk about them. I'd love to just do the videos. That way you guys can watch them whenever, but we'll see. Usually these live streams are about an hour. So we'll see. I might be able to do more today. I'm feeling good, feeling fresh. And so before I go over this question, one other thing that I'm very excited about, speaking of the channel memberships, is I have a partnership with this test score prep. There's that handsome face. And we are launching the beta version of a platform that will allow you to access my questions and do basically what I'm doing here. click things, cross things out, have the access to the calculator, the reference chart, bookmarking things. So it's a new platform. I'll put this link in the description, but just testscoreprep.com, and it's a great way to just have a different way of interacting with my questions. It is $197 for that, and it's a beta trial. You can try it out for free a little bit if you want. So I'm very excited for that. It's been a project in the works for a long time, and it's just another way to get more practice. So I'm hoping that this goes well, and it's a great way to experience those questions. But just trying to offer more options because I keep writing more questions. We need places to put them. So I'll put all that stuff in the description as well. So this is a great question that would appear in the hard section of, or it could appear in either module, but it would appear near the end of one of the math modules. So this question 14, that's probably more like a number 18 or so, and that should make you very suspicious. So I will just tell you, we do have a winner here. That it's close between C and D. But if you arithmetize, this is easy. Let's just make x 10 and think about it with an actual rectangle. So 10 is the length. And then this sentence becomes a lot easier to understand. A rectangle's length is 5 more than its width. So 10 is 5 more than the width. So what's the width? Width is 5, right? So then what's the perimeter of this thing? 20 plus 10 is 30. Right now, that's not going to cause a huge problem. It will cause a little bit of one as I go through the choices, right? So A would be 2 times 10 plus 5. So that's 25. B would be 2 times 10 is 20 plus 10 is 30. So that works. C is 4 times 10 plus 10 is 50. So that's gone. So change your answers because most of you put that, or a lot of you put that. And then 40 minus 10 is also 30. So it's not the end of the world. Sometimes you just happen to pick a number that works for more than one thing. This is a downside of arithmetize, is that occasionally, through no fault of your own, you happen to pick a number that works in multiple answers. And that's okay. Just change your number, right? So let's make x, I don't know, let's make it 20. Let's see if that does anything, right? So then this is 20 and this is 15 because the length is 5 more than the width. So now my perimeter becomes 20, 40 plus 15 and 15 is another, 30. So that's 70. And 2 times 20 is 40 plus 10 is 50. Nope. And 4 times 20 is 80 minus 10 is 70. There you go. No doubt. No doubt. Now, why would people get this wrong? Because you don't read the question right. And it's not your fault. The question is written in such a way that you are meant to read it wrong, right? Your brain sees x is 5 more than its width, and you can't help yourself. It's like an addiction. You're just like, okay, the length is x and something, the width maybe is 5 more. So maybe you're thinking of it backwards and you're confusing the length and the width, or maybe you're not even thinking of it that way at all. You're kind of, in a way, getting it wrong because you're confusing length and width. Even though they say the length is x, right? You're confusing it. So you're doing it this algebraic way. You're losing track of what's really happening. You just see 5 more and you cannot help yourself. You need it to be a plus 5. And then when you do the sides as x plus 5, that's 2x plus 10 plus another 2x's. Well, what do you know? That's 4x plus 10. But that's wrong. That's bad because that's not how it works. They defined our terms. They told us x is the length. So we have to base things off of that. This is a common trap. And my prediction for the August SAT is they're going to do something pretty close to this again. Maybe it'll be a geometry question. Maybe it'll be, some statistics question, some algebra question. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the topic is. They will write a sentence that they know you are going to misinterpret because you're moving too fast and you're too confident in your own abilities. And you got to be cautious. You got to know where the traps are going to be. You got to know that they're going to do this. And that way you can kind of see it coming and avoid the problems. So yeah, very, very important. They are going to do this in some way. Definite prediction. Do we have questions on this one? Can I go over rational expression question with the exponent? I don't even know. I would assume that that's cases where you could probably arithmetize as well. What is the time there now? Right now it is 5:27 p.m. Pacific time. I'm in California. Cool. Now, if you did get it wrong, yeah, just not a big deal on this one because it's an easy fix. Is you got to be cautious. You got to be cautious. Um, the problem with the algebra here is I always think that you're not gonna know if you're right. Algebra is harder for our brains to think about. There is a reason you learned how to find the perimeter of a rectangle with basic numbers when you were like 10 years old, maybe less. There's another, then it takes you until you're like 13, 14 before you even learn what algebra is. So there's a reason there's that gap that algebra is harder. Algebra is more conceptual. Algebra requires a bigger, smarter brain. So why would we choose the harder path? For me, getting back to numbers and arithmetic is where my brain feels more comfortable. And I know many of you think you're confident with algebra. Unless you're getting an 800, I'm sorry. Nope. Nope. Trust me, this is a good example. I can see tons of people who are in AP calculus getting straight A's all the time, and yet they get to the SAT and it's a bloodbath because they're just not prepared. They're not thinking strategically. Okay, where was I? I want to do a reading question for you guys. I know someone asked about that. The algebraic way for this is simple. I gotta zoom out here. If we are following it right, let's do purple. If we're following this right, then the length is x and the width is 5 less than the length, right? Because if the length is 5 more than the width, then you gotta subtract. So notice your brain can't process that. You really, really, really want it to be a plus. It says 5 more. You can't help yourself. That's how powerful the SAT is they're really good at that. So there you go. Now we have 2 lengths. So that's 2x plus 2 widths, 2x minus 5. So 2x plus 2x minus 10 is 4x minus 10. Easy. But I think, even though as easy as that is, why take the risk? Why open the door? Cool. All right. Yeah, let's do some reading writing. I'm eager for a passage here. Let's do. Which one should we do first? Let's do this one first. I was proud of this question and I wrote it. And I think it's not going to fit on the screen. So I'm going to have to, just give me a sec. I'll put the choices over here. So just give me a sec. And I'll fix it. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay. It's close. All right. I feel like that gets everything on there. Yeah. Cool. So there we go. And I'll try to catch up on some of these chats. You guys are going fast today. Oh my goodness. So try to give it a shot. I'm going to talk through this. We're starting English. We did it now. Problem solving, data analysis. That's percents. I could try to get a percentage question in there. We're going to do at least one reading one first, just to kind of give everyone a little bit. I've got plenty of geometry questions on my thing. Really good playlist there. If you got a 1220 on your practice test, Cookie James, then you should expect a 1220 or around that on your real test, unless you learn from your mistakes. So you can definitely do that. You want to see, okay, where's the next grouping of points? If you're getting a lot of grammar questions wrong, then make sure you learn grammar. That's an easy kind of place to pick up points. And that grammar will bleed over into these passage questions. If you're starting with grammar and you're doing well, that's going to mean you're moving fast. You're saving yourself plenty of time for those hard passages. So that's definitely a place to go. Yeah, is 790 the score the same as an 800? Yeah. I think, if you like taking the SAT, feel free to try for those extra 10, but no college is going to care. No college is going to care. Statistics is hard. Well, learn the terms, and hopefully that solves half the problems. Not that you haven't, but yes, it's one of those things that there's a little bit more vocabulary than other math topics. Cookie James, they're really going after you here. But yes, it's a good point. Is like, yes, just a practice test is a good representation of the real exam. People ask this all the time. What's the best practice test? Which one's the most accurate? Which one's the easiest? Which one's the hardest? None of that matters. They're all accurate. They're all good representations of the real exam. The reason you feel like it's shifting under your feet is your strengths and weaknesses might align with a particular test, right? If a great example is vocabulary. If you happen to get hard vocabulary words on your test that you know, right, just through some weird kind of chance of just whatever you've encountered in your life, then you will do better on the vocabulary questions. But the other side of that coin is, what if you happen to get words that you've never seen before? You could study 1,000 words, flashcards, whatever, and still just get unlucky and have none of them show up in the test. That would be unfortunate, but it can happen. And that vocabulary then is always an extreme place where the luck factor is there. But we definitely want to make sure that we are in other places kind of moderating things as much as possible. That's why with grammar, it's not about saying I have a good grammar sense. I can hear the right answer. I'm never answering based on instinct. I'm answering based on rules. The rules are there. Hey, the facts guy, welcome to Study on Your Own. Thanks for becoming a member. Very cool. Very cool. I hope, it lives up to your expectations. Let's see what else we got here. I don't know KD College Prep or Karen Dillard. Nope, don't know. If you're getting a 1410 with untimed practice, I'm going to be honest, like I don't know what that means, right? Like untimed practice. I mean, I think most people get a 1600 if they just spent, forever taking a test. You'll eventually figure everything out, I guess. But the time is such a factor for me, even as well. Those hard math reading modules. Oh my God, that's a nightmare. So I just, it's you got to factor the time in. Here's a great example. This is why I kind of picked this question. Is think about it this way: you got 5 minutes left. It's the hard reading module. Oh my God, this has been so intense. My brain is already turning to mush. And then you get to this thing and you're like, oh no, zinc sulfate, millimolar. Oh no, this seems bad. And look at these choices. Oh my God, they're so long. But I think it's a great example of like, take a deep breath, trust the process. And it's not like every question's like this, but a lot of the ones that look really hard will be. This is very easy if we know what we're doing. Oh, I need to make a poll. Let me do the poll, and you can enter your answers there. And I'll answer a couple more questions. And streptomycin question. A, B, C, D. Okay, there's the poll. Feel free to vote. And I'll give you a couple minutes to enter answers, and then I'll start talking about it. Option D is invisible. Does anyone know if I can I move my video to the other side? That's what I'd like to do. Let me do this. Let me raise this up. Okay. That way, because A is visible here, right? So we're good on that. This is a good compromise. I think there's a way for me to move my video to the other side, but I lost that. I found it once before. Edit. No. I know there's a way. I did it once before, but I don't know that way anymore. See, I got to figure this stuff out. Great at the SAT, not good at other things. Okay. Okay. Yeah, if you're sitting an hour on a module, you got to test that. That's double the time. You got to test that with a half hour. Can I teach you how to cope with bad scores? I mean, that's a good one. I would say just the easiest advice there is recognize that bad is very relative. I think a lot of you guys think bad scores are like anything less than a 1550, and that's just not true. I mean, remember, an average score is about 1,000, maybe an 1,100. So if you're getting a 1,200, a 1,250, a 1,300, that's great. You're above average. If you're getting anything in the 14s, that's excellent. And especially since I know a lot of you guys aren't native English speakers, if you are getting in the 600s and you've only been speaking English for a couple of years, that's incredible. I took, 4 years of Spanish in school. I can't speak more than like, where's the bathroom? I have nothing. So the fact that you can take a test in another language, gosh, that's amazing. I think that's really incredible. And I would never be able to take more than like a Spanish 1 level test in Spanish and do any good. So yeah. All right, let's see. Where are we with this? What is the last SAT you can take for regular decision? I think It is the December one, but I would double check that. I'm not really sure. Um, oh, here, someone had a good question here. For the hard questions, if you can't make a dumb summary and you make like a pretty long summary, is that a bad thing for reading questions? Not necessarily. If if that gives you some sense of what's going on. I don't know if you're referring kind of to this question, but I would say that the shorter the summary, the better, because it forces you to focus on details that really matter and ignore the ones that don't. And just in terms of time, longer summaries eat up more time. So yeah, to me, shorter is better. A lot of times, instead, if I'm having trouble with a dumb summary, I just abandon a summary altogether. I know that the answer choices are going to be summaries. So I'd much rather just let the answer choices tell me what to care about. That to me is a big strategy move that a lot of people have trouble with. You guys need to go to the choices with a clear sense of what you want. And that hurts you more than it helps, because a lot of times the SAT is going to give you a correct answer that sounds nothing like what you would expect a correct answer to sound like. But that's their goal. They're trying to disguise it. So the more detailed your summary, the more you're kind of committing yourself to a certain version of the passage. And it might not be the version that they give you. So you want to make sure you're looking at it that way. Cool. All right, let's take a look at this one. I see there's other questions here, but let's see if I can maybe solve some of them by doing this. Oh, I could have just scrolled. That would have been easier. Okay. So I'm going to read it, and I will read it fast, because as in my brain, as I take the test, I'm always worried about time. So I'm trying to read as fast as I can. So bacterial cultures that produce streptomycin, a widely used antibiotic, have been the subject of extensive research aimed at improving production efficiency. Don't know what that means. Don't care. Many researchers believe there's a positive correlation. Hey, that sounds important. Strong words. Between the concentration of zinc sulfate added to bacterial cultures and the amount of streptomycin produced, given zinc's known role as a cofactor in several metabolic enzymes that enhance the pathways. Well, positive correlation. One thing goes up, the other thing goes up. That's a positive correlation. So what are the things, right? This is a great example of how you start a dumb summary. Is anytime they're giving you some clear relationship, latch onto that. I don't care what streptomycin is. I don't care what zinc sulfate is. I care that as zinc goes up, the streptomycin also goes up, right? That's what this says. I don't know what a cofactor is. I barely know what metabolic enzymes are. I don't know what antibiotic biosynthesis really is. I don't care. Then, another big strong word. However, I've said this before in my lessons. The most important word in any passage is but. But, and all of its variants. So, however, that's just a longer but. So that probably matters. However, microbiologist Naomi Forecastle conducted a controlled experiment that yielded unexpected, that's another piece that kind of hits that idea of a but, unexpected results. Using standardized bacterial populations across identical growth conditions, Forecastle systematically varied zinc sulfate concentrations from 0.5 to 8.0 millimolar and measured streptomycin output at 24-hour intervals. Her data revealed that. Okay, well, it's something unexpected. So where are we probably going with this? We're probably going to flip this in some way, right? So this is what it starts with. But my answer, I think I can squeeze it in down here. Yeah, this looks good. Is probably going to be that as we increase zinc, we decrease the streptomycin, something like that. Or maybe it's just going to take that equal sign and turn it into a non-equal sign, right? That's another option, is that they're going to say, well, that turns out there's just no relationship at all. Right? What's the opposite of a positive correlation? A negative correlation, or no correlation. So I'm kind of keeping my options open, but this is a clear dumb summary. A lot of garbage in this passage, but that dumb summary, really good. Now let's go to the choices. So let's go to A. Which choice most logically completes the text? Her data revealed that cultures maintained at 6 millimolar zinc sulfate concentrations exhibited enhanced metabolic flux through secondary biosynthetic pathways. No idea what that means. Resulting in a 40% increase in streptomycin yield compared to unsupplemented controls. Okay, well, that sounds like 6 millimolar. That's pretty high, right? So that's high zinc, and it led to increased streptomycin, especially compared to unsupplemented controls, meaning probably no zinc. So I'm trying to force the answer choices to sound like my dumb summary. So I'm going to squeeze it in right here. I know this is a weird spot, but this sounds like as I increase the zinc, I increase the streptomycin, which is exactly what they said in the passage, which is exactly why it's wrong, because it's supposed to be however. And this is a classic example, too, of why we need to notice these kinds of relationships, these contrasts. Is I predict on the August SAT many, many times, when they give you a passage that has a clear contrast, there will be two answers: a answer that is correct, that matches that contrast and understands that things have changed, and an answer that ignores that contrast and goes with what they said at the beginning. And this is a classic example of something that you hear in school that's just plain wrong. We learn in school that the main idea of a paragraph is at the beginning. No, it not necessarily. The main idea of a paragraph can be anywhere in the paragraph. So the first sentence, especially in an SAT passage, might be wrong. It might lead you astray. In this case, it just defines terms. But even still, the earlier on here is giving us important information, but it's certainly not the main takeaway of the passage. It gets flipped. The however is much more important. So A is definitely wrong here. I'm confident in that. All right, moving around here, let's go to B. Zinc sulfate deficiency below 1 millimolar severely impaired cellular respiration pathways, with cultures showing streptomycin biosynthesis that decreased linearly as zinc concentrations fell below physiologically adequate levels. Okay, so that sounds like a decrease in zinc leads to a decrease in streptomycin, right? That's what it sounds like to me. And yeah, I mean, that sounds at first like we're flipping what we started with, right? We had them both going up, but now they're both going down. But this is just maybe something that you just need to learn, is that a positive correlation, we tend to write them as increases, but it's more has to do with the direction, right? So the direction for a positive correlation is that both things move in the same direction. And so if we flip both upside down, that's still a positive correlation, even though both the arrows are now going down, because they're both going in the same direction. So that's a little bit of a trap there, is that, well, yeah, there's going to be, it looks like it's now flipped, but a negative correlation is more like what we have, what we have here, that this is, they're moving in opposite directions. So B is gone. C, zinc sulfate concentrations exceeding 4 millimolar consistently triggered upregulation of stress response genes, whatever that means, leading to a proportional decrease in streptomycin biosynthesis as zinc levels increase. Increase in zinc, decrease in streptomycin. Increase in zinc, decrease in streptomycin. I mean, it's exactly what I want. Now, I got to look at D, but oh my God, this is standing out as a great choice. I have no idea what half of it means. But that's because I don't care about all those details and those nouns and all these science terms. It's not about that. It's about the arrows. It's about the equal sign. That's what the passages are about. They're about math in a way. So this is really standing out to me as like the thing to focus on. So let's look at D. Zinc sulfate proved superior to other, that's a problem word, other cofactors and several metabolic enzymes, demonstrating greater efficacy in promoting streptomycin production than previously tested copper or manganese supplements. This is what I sometimes call small versus big confusion. This is a small example, right? This is about zinc and what zinc does, and that's all I really know. This is a big conclusion. This D is kind of talking about other cofactors, whatever cofactors are, and starting to get into this kind of thing about like other pieces that we just don't have any science information about, right? So I'm not allowed to make broad conclusions when I only have a very narrow set of facts. So that's wrong for that reason. And there you go. C is the answer. This would be a great example of a question that at first glance seems like it's going to be a nightmare. But if you know what to look for and how to filter through that passage, oh boy, this is a gift. This would be easy. This would be easy. Not, super easy, but yeah. Tirolini, hey, how we doing? Are you still here? Yes. Cool. Guys, check out the Tutorlini channel if you're looking for more prep, especially for the math section. Lots of great stuff. He's got lots of free lessons, lots of free questions you guys can do and worksheets and stuff. Really awesome. That's probably why I'll stick to reading for the next question as well, is, he's got that math covered pretty well. So he's a great one. Will be more live streams? Yeah. I don't know. Is Kyle going to do a live stream? We'll see. We'll see. But getting close to the test. So let's see. Is there anything about this question? This is an easy one, but during the actual test, the stress would make it 10 times harder. Yes, I totally get that. And so, one of the hardest things about the SAT is we have to maintain our cool. If you struggle with test anxiety, nervousness, my advice is just to kind of, and this isn't good advice, but suck it up. And that's not to say that, not to diminish the problem. But I think a misconception people have about nervousness is that there's some way to make it disappear. I get nervous talking in front of big crowds. This not so much, because this is all fake. I'm just in my apartment. But like basically, yeah, I still get nervous talking in front of crowds, and I have for years, ever since I was doing Model UN in high school. It still makes me nervous. I get sweaty palms and kind of nauseous, and it's not great. But no matter how much I try to think it through, that it's all going to be fine, it doesn't work. It's just I feel those things no matter what. But you just got to do it anyway. And so I think that one of the best things you can try to do for your SAT prep, if you do get nervous, is when you're taking practice tests, try to get into that same mental space. Try to get to a point where you're like, I'm nervous about the practice tests. So that way you can learn how to deal with that feeling. Really, really try to treat the practice tests like the real thing. And that way, when you get to the real thing, it's not that the nervousness goes away. It's just you just know how to deal with it. And one of the reasons, this is really important, one of the reasons people do worse on their real test than on the practice test is it does have to do with nervousness, but it's much more of a decision that people tend to make. They get to the real test and they stop using the strategies that they used on the practice tests. They start thinking, well, I don't know. I thought maybe I could arithmetize, but I didn't do it because I thought it might not work. Well, I stopped doing dumb summaries because it just didn't seem like it would work for that passage. Well, why? It's working on the practice test. It's working on the practice questions. These aren't random things we're doing. There's a reason we do it. So stick to the plan. When you do get nervous, there's a temptation to second guess your strategy, second guess your answer. Fight it, right? Whatever worked for you in the practice test, it's going to keep working. The real test is the same as the practice test. I cannot stress that enough. If you think it's different, that's you. That's your weird way of kind of putting the two things in different categories. They're the same category. So very important, if you are someone who gets nervous, just stick to the plan. Trust the process. All right, before we do another question, where are we here? Actually, let's put the other question up. Any questions on this one? I feel like we're good. Cool. Okay, someone wants a similar one. I can do that. I can oblige. Okay. Actually, let me grade this one so I know we did it. There we go. All right, just a little bit. I'll do the same thing. I'll put the choices up here. Just give me a sec. Okay. And since A is still there, well, you can just do B, C, D, and my head will be out of the way. Yeah, there we go. Good. So there you go. A down there, B, C, D. Weird, but it's good enough. All right, let me check up with some questions here. I'll put the poll up. Start a poll. Sticky wages. A, B, C, D. Start. All right, let's see. Any questions here that I missed? Are there going to be more live streams? We'll see. We got a week, and now we got these new questions. I might be able to do some. We'll see. I'll try to do as much as I can. August SAT is a big deal. Unless you were asking Kyle Tutorlini about the live streams, I don't know what he's going to do. How to time manage in the reading section. You got to use those dumb summaries. You got to trust that having less information is more important than having more. I know that's counterintuitive, but it does work. Otherwise, you also have to have a sacrifice plan. You're just got to accept that you are going to, you're going to get stuff that you're going to have to maybe guess randomly on some things. It happens. It's just the way of it. I have to do the same when I take the SAT. I'm always kind of aware of the fact that I'm probably going to have to guess randomly on one or two. Usually I make them the graph questions because I hate those. And half the time I'm lucky and I get through everything and it's no problem. But yeah, I'm prepared to have to make choices about what I'm going to sacrifice. And if you're not prepared to do that, then when the time starts ticking down, you're going to be very nervous. And that's no good. Arrow 35, I often panic on the reading when I don't understand a question the first time, which leads me to make stupid mistakes. Yeah. I mean, I know this is easier said than done, but don't panic, right? I mean, I want to stress that last question that I read, I don't understand what it's about other than the arrows. Here, same thing. I don't really understand what it's about, except like the kind of keywords that I'll highlight, but you don't need to understand everything to understand the important stuff for the question. And I would say that most of the time, the words that matter most in a passage are ones that are very common, very easy words. That's why, again, I keep saying the most important word in any passage is but. But is an easy word. It's not a word you should be missing, and it's definitely one that's going to matter. So you got to trust the process again. Semantics. We're going to talk about that. I generally struggle with information and ideas questions since I can get two answers that seem valid at first glance. I think that's going to happen here. So we'll table that one for a sec. I don't hide the timer info channel. I need to see it. I need I need to know where I am, and it's up to you. I think it's personal preference, but I really need to see like kind of what I've got left, because I think that affects my decision making. It affects what questions I do and which ones I skip and all that stuff. So I do what you need to do to get the most points is always what it comes down to. But personally, I need that timer because it keeps me moving. Use the I don't know what the V2 trading, what the backward strategy is. Maybe you're just talking about process elimination, but even still, if I'm doing that, I'm reading the passage first. I'm always reading the passage before I, look at the choices, because the passage makes barely any sense and the choices make no sense without it. So I need that. Yeah, I would say just, move as fast as you can. Obviously it gets easier if you just have better reading comprehension. Yeah, Ryan J. I think I did put that in the thumbnail. Yeah, is the August SAT harder? No. Every SAT is the same difficulty. Plus, there is no August SAT anymore, right? There's multiple versions of the August SAT that different people are going to take because they want to, prevent cheating and all that. So there is no single test. But even still, if it feels easier or harder, that is probably more about your personal strengths and weaknesses affecting your perception. And even if it is genuinely, objectively slightly harder, all those things get worked out in the scoring. So, keep that in mind, is that there's a curve here that gets kind of flattened. They're trying to make it so that no matter when you take the SAT, a 1400 is the same. So all that stuff gets worked out with some complicated math on the back end. I do have a video that I did with that. I think get it quick and put it in there. Two very good videos. Scoring. I don't even know where it is. Oh, here's both. Here you go. Is this gonna come up if I do this here? Yeah, there you go. Let's pin that. That's the most important one, is that's the one that's about just the most basics of the test. But if you're super curious, this one is also very good. That's the twists. That's getting into way more detail than you need. But yes. Cool. All right. Let's see. I'll answer a couple more questions and let you guys finish it. A is a trap. Okay. This is scrolling too fast. Ideal time split. Yes, AS Arjith. I would say, 7 minutes I think is going to be tough for all the grammar and transitions and outlines, but I'd say 10 is good. Yeah, that's my goal, is 10. But sometimes I'm a little over. 11, 12 ain't the worst thing in the world. Sometimes it kind of depends where the hardest questions tend to fall. We never really know what hand we're going to get dealt, but if we get dealt the hand of like lots of hard transitions and outlines, that just might mean that 10 minutes is going to be hard to get through. But that also means if we get really hard grammar, transitions, outlines, that's probably going to be an easier test overall, because then you're not going to get very hard questions in the grammar and in the passages in the vocab. So we don't know where those hard ones are going to fall, but hopefully they play to our strengths. But I would say if you're really looking for that top reading score, you got to be through the grammar, transitions, and outlines fast and accurately. So you really, your aim should be 10 minutes, but if it's 11 or 12, not the end of the world. But you better be accurate, because you're gonna have some trouble in the passages for sure. Okay. I'm probably not going to do any note-taking questions tonight. I didn't really prepare any. I might have a transition for you guys in a second. We still got some time. I can go over an hour here. All right. Let's see. I feel like, I guess I'm shaving my head. I must have missed some chats there. So Supreet, I don't know what that's all about, but go for it, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this one. So I'm going to read it as fast as I do in my head on the real test. The phenomenon of sticky wages, the tendency of employee compensation to remain relatively constant despite fluctuations in broader economic conditions, has long puzzled economists who puzzled labor markets to behave more like commodity markets where prices adjust rapidly to supply and demand pressure. So the most important thing I take out of that is they're confused about something. Behavioral economist, whatever, and his colleagues have proposed that this wage rigidity stems from workers' concerns about fairness and reciprocity within employment relationships. According to their efficiency wage theory, employers deliberately maintain wages above market clearing levels because doing so fosters employee loyalty and productivity, ultimately reducing costly turnover and monitoring expenses that would offset any savings from wage cuts during economic downturns. So honestly, I'm going to have a very bad dumb summary here. All I'm really getting is, okay, they're puzzled and now there's like some sort of theory that explains it. I'm not trying to memorize what that theory is. It's not disappearing. It doesn't run away as soon as I read it. So let's just see what we get in the choices. Hopefully something makes more sense. So main idea of the text. Although sticky wages have historically been seen as evidence of inefficient labor markets, well, they're puzzled. Is it inefficient? Just says that they're kind of confused about something. I don't. Inefficient seems pretty strong, but let's keep going. Akerlof's research demonstrates that wage rigidity and let's see, I'm going to end the poll. No one picked D. Akerlof's research demonstrates that wage rigidity actually reflects optimal pricing strategies that benefit both employers and employees. Optimal means it's the best. They say it's the best. I don't think so, right? I mean, I'm checking. Notice I'm checking for a specific idea. I'm not rereading this just generally. I have an idea in mind. I don't think they said it was the best. So 2 words here really scared me. I might leave this choice in just because maybe I'm being too harsh, but those words are scary. So let's look at B. Economists have struggled to explain sticky wages because they have ignored, another strong word, the psychological factors that influence employment relationships, an omission that Akerlof sought to remedy with his research on efficiency wage theory. That kind of bothers me a little bit, but let's just move on for now. The efficiency wage theory provides a behavioral explanation for why wages remain stable during economic fluctuations. So it's explaining something. Okay, fine. Suggesting that employers maintain higher wages because the resulting benefits outweigh the costs. Do they talk about that? They say offset any savings. Maybe saying it's good, right? So at least the connotation is right. Let's look at D. While Akerlof's efficiency wage theory successfully explains sticky wages in most industries, it fails to account for wage flexibility observed in commodity sectors where employee loyalty is less important. This has got so many classic problems, right? That word most, squeeze it in there. Quantifier, right? Why are we quantifying these industries and counting a number of industries? Most means more than 50%, right? So that's a very specific claim. They're not doing that kind of claim here. They're not working on things. Oh, we got a member, Kay. I don't know what your actual name is, but it says Kay there. Thank you for joining. You're somewhere in here. I'll find you later. Krishna. There you go. Cool. Thanks for joining the membership. I hope it is a good experience. Anyway, back to this. Less important. Well, that's a comparison. Are we comparing different sectors? No. So I don't think anyone picked that, which is good. I don't know where the results went to the poll. There they are. D, 0%. Okay, good. You shouldn't pick that. That was a bad one. But of the other 3, again, clock is ticking. I've got to make a choice. This might be the case where I'm placing a smart bet. I don't really see anything that's particularly strong with C. It's a weak answer. Right now, that sounds like I'm saying it's bad, but no. SAT, that's good, right? I like weak. Weak means that it's inoffensive, it's bland, it's vague, and vague answers are hard to prove wrong, which is what we want, right? We want it to kind of be right because there's nothing really that it says that's controversial. So it provides a behavioral explanation. Okay, well, he's a behavioral economist, so that's pretty good. And it's talking about workers' concerns about fairness. Yeah, okay. Right? That sounds like a behavior. Check. They remain stable during economic fluctuations. Well, it says rigidity. So I like that. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Suggesting that employers maintain higher wages because the resulting benefits outweigh the costs. Well, they're talking about loyalty and productivity. It reduces costly turnover. So that sounds like a good thing overall. So this seems pretty good. Now, I would absolutely bookmark this because the other choices are kind of close. But if I know that I have a time pressure in that hard reading module, sometimes you got to settle for like, I've got 85% confidence on this. I've done enough passages where I know what kinds of words are problems, what kinds of choices are too strong or hard to prove. So going back to A and B a little bit, optimal is such a scary word. It means it is the best pricing strategy. They are not getting that specific about things. So maybe this other stuff is right. I don't think they said the labor markets were inefficient. They were just saying that they were kind of confused about how they worked. So that's a very strong word too. So that, if there was no other good choice, I'd pick it. But there's something better. This is too strong. Same with B. They've ignored the psychological factors. Being confused by something is not quite the same as ignoring something, right? Those are not the same. Now, it's close. And so, again, if C weren't there, maybe B is a choice I settle for. It seems, good enough. But this is, I forget who asked it, but basically, when you are down to two answer choices, try to ask yourself which one is strong, which one is weak. And as counterintuitive as it may seem, you want weaker answer choices. You want something that says less, that makes weaker claims, that doesn't go beyond the details of the passage. So there's certain words that kind of pop. And notice there's a lot of words in here I don't know. I don't know anything but economics, but I know the word ignored. I know the word optimal, inefficient, sought, right? Most. All of these are common words. And so that's what you're trying to filter out and kind of notice. And the thing about sought is I don't know what he sought to do, right? That means he kind of like did it for a reason. He kind of went out of his way to do it. So I don't know. Maybe he just happened to come up with this theory randomly. Like I don't know what he went out to say. Like okay, there's this puzzle that I'm going to solve. Maybe, but that's the kind of thing that I really need to be in the passage. And so many of you guys make assumptions and say, well, that's a reasonable thing he could have done. That's what I would do. But the passage needs to say it. Passage needs to say it. All right, so what have I missed here? Some people are celebrating for C. Ignore is a no-no word. I agree. Why is B wrong? I hope I just explained. Yep, ignored, sought, way too strong. Yep. Rhetorical synthesis, you do not need to read the notes unless you end up with two answers that seem to work and that have different explanation or different facts in the choices. Then you go to the notes. Question in the notes, I agree. Passages scare me. They scare me too. C doesn't even mention the study the guy made. Well, B does. Okay. Yeah, sir. Great point here. Okay. How do I want to say this? It doesn't. How do I want to say this? The passages. You are not looking for the best possible summary of any of these passages. That's not the goal. That's not the task. Right? Look at even the question. Which choice best states the main idea of the text? Not what is the best possible main idea of the text? What is the best possible summary of the text? They are not giving you the best possible summary out there. Otherwise, it would be so obviously correct that everyone would pick it, right? They are deliberately giving you a summary that is good enough. So that is a key idea for the SAT. Good enough. What's good enough, right? And so if you're writing a detailed summary yourself, you're going to be very disappointed when your summary is better than the right answer. That's because they're not going to make it a very detailed summary. They want it to be vague. They don't want it to stand out. So that's why I kind of do this thing where I break it apart into all these little pieces. And I'm like, okay, how about this piece? How does this work? And as much as possible, I'd like to check that piece against the passage, because then I go back to the passage with a goal, something to look for. But if you are looking for a good summary of the text, you will consistently be disappointed. You have to be okay with the right answers being kind of bad. That's why I say they're weak. They're weak, but that's good. That's just how the game of the SAT is played. That may seem unfair. That may seem, I don't know, counterproductive, but that's just the game. That's the way it goes. Yeah. So that's why I don't spend time coming up with a detailed summary. You are wasting your time. You are focusing on details that will not show up in the choice. Yeah. Cool. All right. Height reveal. I did that already. That was in the if you want to watch the height reveal, I'm 6 foot. That was in the I'd use that in the what's it called? The scoring one, the twists, scoring twists. Okay. Um, all right. Hold my hand onto the webcam from. I don't know what that means. But this is this is what you want for a second. I don't know what that is. I'm too old, guys. Okay. Yeah, 10 minutes for the 15 to 27 on English. I would say 14 minutes for questions 1 to 14 on the hard math module. That doesn't mean a minute exactly per question, but roughly within 15 minutes, you've got to be on question 15. And then once you get to 15, start skipping around the hard math module. Don't feel like you got to do them in order. Same with the passages. Don't feel like you got to do them in order. Skim, look for something that looks good. Do what you like. Cool. All right. I love you guys too. I love you too. Keep cool. I don't know if that was in reference to anything specific, but there you go. Why do I go so slow? I feel like I go fast. Okay. Yeah, Caitlin, I kind of agree with that too. It's psychological. It's not that they've ignored the psychological factors. They might have thought about them. They just it's this guy's theory is more about them. Okay. All right. We got some more time. I can do a little bit more. Someone had requested some transitions. So maybe we do that. I got quick. Those are quick. Hold on, I gotta find it. Is this the one? Yeah. I want to review the strategy because predictions wise, here's a good one. You're gonna need the strategy. So hopefully you guys remember. Should you check your answers or just spend more time doing it once? I guess it depends. Honestly, in the hard modules, you're not going to have time to check your answers. You got to be right the first time. And so that's why efficiency is so important is you've got to be able to not make careless mistakes and not fall for traps and move fast because otherwise you're going to get lost in all those hard questions. And so ideally you'll have time to come back to things. But for the passages, I'm definitely, getting to good enough. I think this answer is right. It's good enough. I'm going to place a bet that it's right and I'll move on. And then if I do happen to have time by some miracle, I'll come back to it. But I almost never have time. In math, I usually do. But for me, it's because I'm so efficient using the strategies the first time through. I would say with math, if you are going to check your work, don't check it the same way you did it the first time. Do a different way. If you use Desmos the first time, do algebra the second time. If you did algebra the first time, go arithmetize, plug points into equations, do something different. Because if you just do it again the same way, you will probably make the same mistake. So defeating the point of checking things. Cool. All right. I have issues in the inference questions. How do I eliminate options more effectively? It's kind of the same. I don't think there's really much difference between the passages that we've already done in this live stream and the inference ones. I think it feels different, but I would say it's the same thing. The dumb summary, look at certain words in the passages, look at any contrast that they're making. If you can kind of get to the end of that story and you have a very dumb ending for the story, a dumb summary ending, then, just write it down and try to use that to go through the choices. If you don't, it's not a big deal. A lot of times I don't have a dumb summary. I just end up kind of like being like, all right, well, let's see what the choices say. The choices are just as informative as the passage. Same thing in math, right? Is take advantage of the fact that it's a multiple choice test. You don't have to come up with your own summary. They're giving you 4, right? We don't have to come up with our own word for this blank. They're giving me 4. So, sometimes if you have a vague sense of what you're looking for, go for it. But if you don't, remember, you've got these options. Though I would say these are options that you want to make sure you also dumb summarize. And remember, these transition words fit into 4 main categories with some that sometimes don't fit those categories. So our 4 main categories are and, but, so, and for example. And yeah, all of these kind of fit there, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. Maybe a little bit of an exception. But I would definitely use that. We could talk about this one fast. When developing early photographic portraits in the 1850s, Victorian photographers employed careful lighting techniques to achieve the dramatic effects their wealthy clients desired. They would position multiple oil lamps at precise angles around the subject to create deep shadows and highlight facial features in flattering ways. They placed reflective metal sheets behind the lamps to intensify and direct the light onto specific areas of the subject's face and clothing. Okay, well, it just seems like two things about lamps. But all right, let's see. If I dumb summarize these words, for example, well, that's one of the categories, so that one's easy. And then in particular is just another way of saying for example. So that's hugely important because, well, if these mean the same thing, then one can't be right while the other's wrong. This strategy, I predict, for the August SAT will be useful on at least one hard transitions question, where if we see two words that fit the same category, we cross them both out. Now our choices are a little bit simpler. That is kind of a harder word, and is basically what furthermore means. Now, normally I'm not going to pick and words unless everything else is kind of wrong. And so and is kind of my last resort. So I'm mostly thinking on that is, what does that really mean? It kind of fits into the for example category, but I think it's much closer to another very common transition phrase in other words. And I'll add this in. I'm hesitant about it, but I would say it's useful as long as you're listening. Most common wrong answer. I looked at all the transition ones. Most common wrong answer by far, in other words. It's almost always wrong. The key word being almost always wrong, right? It can be right. So it's not like you can just cross it out. But the reason it's almost always wrong is that people kind of don't understand what it means. It's very literal. In other words means we are about to say the same thing in other words. So the real question is this second sentence here the same or different from the first one? Well, this is talking about positioning the oil lamps at angles around the subject. Okay. And this is talking about placing reflective metal sheets behind the lamps. That's a different thing. They're related, but it's not the same thing in other words. So I got no choice. I got to pick D. And furthermore, doesn't really do anything. It's not really a transition. It's just kind of like, all right, here's a new thing. So that's why it's our last resort. Is usually if you are trying to look for a transition, you want something that actually adds meaning to the sentence, right? A but adds contrast, a so adds cause and effect. So we want something that does something and connects these sentences, but sometimes there's no connection. Sometimes it's just like we've moved on. Here's a new thing. And furthermore is basically doing that. But since it's a weak transition, we usually don't want to pick it if something better is there. But in this case, there isn't. So we're stuck. So yeah, this would be a great example. Like, I know people always are looking for predictions of what's on the test. I don't know the specifics, but I do know you're going to get something with these transitions where it's going to be hard if you just kind of go about it based on your instincts. These two sentences are examples of the lighting technique. So they're setting you up to pick something like A or B because they are examples. But this sentence here at the end is not an example of the sentence that came before it. They're both examples of the first thing. And that's a subtle distinction, but that's the important one. And hopefully you would notice it. But even if you didn't, if you noticed the dumb summaries and you crossed out A and B because of the dumb summary category, doesn't matter. You're not going to fall for that trap. And there are absolutely hard transition questions that I am getting right only because of this strategy. It eliminates two choices and gets me down to two others. Now, I should say, as a disclaimer, right, this same strategy thing or the same category thing, there have been rare occasions where it doesn't work. Hopefully, though, because you're practicing and getting used to the times that it does work, when it does fail, you kind of notice that something's up. And that's a good mentality for the entire SAT is like, for every rule, there's an exception. And you got to be flexible. If you just memorize what to do in each case, then you'll still be surprised when they give you new situations or they kind of bend the rules a little bit. So you got to be flexible. It's definitely there. Cool. All right. Where are we in these questions here? We got another new member, Jatinder. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but welcome. Welcome. Very cool. Very cool. We're getting a lot of people joining the membership. That's awesome. Let's see. We got people talking about B. That said, someone's asking about that one. That said, ALP is more of a but. That said is but. I like ice cream. That said, it makes me sick. Right? That's a good example of a that said, right? I like ice cream. Seems really good, but it makes me sick, right? So it doesn't actually. I love ice cream, but point is made, right? So that's what's tricky, I think, about that is and that said is both feel like just kind of nothing phrases. And this is a good example of just memorize things. So, I do have on my channel a transitions thing somewhere in here. Nope. Oh, hey, that's cool. Little red thing. The transitions one somewhere down here. Grammar, reading help. There it is. Transitions, full strategy guide. This is a great video. Great video. So yeah, definitely check that out. We got all the math things for speaking about memberships. These are the playlists. I think there's a couple I have to add that I haven't added to this yet, but tons. Look at that. Grammar, all these things, positives. Oh, it doesn't even go all the way. There's many more. And then math, same thing. Lots of strategies, things like that. And then I do have plenty of free stuff for everyone from the College Board Question Bank. So you can go through these. They're kind of my own mixes, things that I've come up with over time that I think are kind of helpful ways of thinking about things. For example, that arithmetize strategy, if you want to practice that, equivalent expressions is a great way to do that. So most of the questions are going to be ones where you could do algebra, but you should basically avoid it. Cool. Let's see. Looks like we're all talking about this question. That said is a but word. Yes. Um, cool. My major in college was political science and philosophy. And I think the philosophy major in particular really helped me understand how the SAT works in lots of ways. Because a lot of things that you do in the philosophy classes is you kind of turn off your own beliefs and assumptions, and you have to think about other people's arguments from like a neutral point of view. And a lot of the times with these passages, I know I have my own assumptions and my own, kind of ways of thinking and my own knowledge. But you got to make sure you're checking that stuff at the door. You don't want to be using your own assumptions to kind of answer these questions. Where should you practice the hard math questions? Definitely use the question bank. Your videos are amazing. When are you live? I think, Sebastian, if you're talking about me, I'm live right now. There you go. If you're talking about someone else, then I don't know. There'll probably be a September SAT live stream. That September one is so new. That's the first time they're doing that. So I should have time to come on and join you guys for a little bit. Cool. August SAT. I hope we're all feeling ready. And speaking of hard math questions, if you are a member, here, anything that says twists is going to be really good. That's me pushing the limits of not going beyond what could be on the SAT, but really just focusing on those like crazy hard questions. So geometry twists, that's one of them. I know there's quadratic twists somewhere in here. Percents twists, good. You got to learn percents. Quadratic twists. So a lot of that is really good. Statistics twists. So those are going to be tougher playlists. I can hopefully even add a couple things to that in the next week. But yeah, that's an example of stuff that if you're looking for more hard math questions, hard passages, I actually think, it's not in here. The set that I have for the strong words exercise, that one I made recently, that's got some good stuff in there. I highly recommend that for some hard passages. Cool. Does College Board reuse questions? Yes, you might see questions on your test that you've seen before, or ones that are very, very similar to the question bank questions, but you'll also see tons of new stuff. The point is it looks similar because, they don't change things that much, right? Can we do statistics? Maybe I can find a question. I don't know what I got here. I'll throw one more up. I'm kind of running out of steam, but let's see what we got here. What's this guy? No, let's do. This is the best I got for some statistics here. I'll look at some more questions. That being said, I feel like is also the real can. That's going to be another but. Yeah. That being said, I like ice cream. That being said, makes me sick, right? I think the ice cream thing is a good way to think about stuff. Supreet, I'm assuming you're joking. um, the best strategy to get a 1500 is to be good at everything all the time, which is obviously very hard. Um, now you guys are, I think you're trolling me. Which Blue Book practice test resembles the actual test? Of course, they all do. I kind of talked about that. I think you guys are looking at the thumbnail there. That's good, though. So, again, those kind of questions are related. I know we're maybe joking about it, but if you want to consistently get a 1500, the the question of which practice test is best, it can't matter, right? In order to get a 1500, you have to be good at kind of every single skill that the test focuses on, and so you have to be able to adapt no matter what. And if your score is determined by just the randomness of the passages and the vocab words and the math questions, then you're just kind of, just like a leaf in the wind. You're just blowing whatever way the test blows you, right? And that can sometimes be good, right? If you just happen to get a test that works with your particular skills, great. But to really truly get in the 1500s, you got to be good at everything all the time. And that means rather than the test kind of controlling you, you need to control the test. You need to be the one who's kind of taking an active role and saying, I'm not going to fall for these traps. No matter what this geometry question looks like, I'm going to solve it. No matter what this algebra question looks like, I'm going to plug points into equations and arithmetize. No matter what this passage topic is about, I'm going to be able to write a dumb summary. No matter what the grammar rule, it looks like, I know what the rules are to solve it. So all those things, that's really required for a top score. Is it doesn't matter which test is harder. It doesn't matter if you get a hard test or an easy test. You're ready no matter what. Okay. If you, yeah, so I'm probably missing some questions here. The guessing penalty is not really there. You shouldn't be leaving questions blank, is really what it comes down to. You are always going to probably be able to eliminate at least one answer, right? So here's a good example. If I knew this was a hard question, the price of a certain stock is D dollars. After 1 month, the price of the stock decreases by 36%. The price of the stock must increase by P% to return to its original price of D dollars. Which of the following is close to the value of P? No freaking way is it A. No way. Unless this was question number 1 in a module, there's no way it's going to be that, right? First of all, anytime you see percentages on the SAT, you should know that there's lots of traps lurking there. You got to be careful of that. So no way is it going to be that easy anyway. But yeah, that's just not how percentages work. You're not going to decrease 36% and then increase 36%. That's not, the SAT is not going to ask that. So at the very least, now you've increased your odds to the point where you should be guessing. So, pick something. And the way the SAT really works, it's hard to say how the guessing works in the back end. It is accounted for. Basically, my advice with that is don't get easy questions wrong. If you get easy questions wrong, the way the scoring system works is it's gonna think you're dumber than you are. If they're careless mistakes, you might shrug them off, but the algorithm, the way that it processes your score, it doesn't know that was just a careless mistake. It shows that you got an easy question wrong. It now starts to kind of judge your performance in the hard questions. And if you get a hard question right, it's kind of thinking, well, maybe that's just a lucky guess. So this is much more complicated. Again, go to those scoring basics and scoring twists videos that I posted earlier. One's pinned at the top. Those will start to get into that. But, I wouldn't worry about it. You shouldn't be leaving questions blank in the test. And you shouldn't be getting this wrong. Certain price of a stock is D dollars. Let's say it's 100. Arithmetize, right? You're giving me a D for dollars? That doesn't make any sense. Let's just make a number. After 1 month, the price of the stock decreases by 30%, 36%. So now what's it worth? After 1 month, it's worth, what's 100 minus 36 is 64. So $64. Okay. It must increase by P% to return to its original price of D dollars, which is the volume is close to the value of P. So this is an open formula. I'm going to use the 1 plus or minus P formula because it's an increase, right? So it must increase. That's 1 plus P, right? So, okay. The original price is D dollars. So it's current, it's original, even though it says original, O, remember, stands for original, N stands for new. But now our original price is actually the 64, right? Because we're saying it needs to increase from the 64. So that puts our new price back at the starting value of 100. Now just solve for P. So divide by 64, divide by 64. 1 plus P is, let's get that calculator. 100 divided by 64 is 1.5625. Subtract the 1, subtract the 1, 0.5625. But remember, it doesn't really matter on this question because of the way this works, but remember, their P is the percentage as a number out of 100, but in our open formula, the P is a decimal, so it's out of 1. So you just got to make sure you always do that conversion, but this would be 56.25%. Piece of cake. Now, that's a hard question, but it's predictable. Again, predictions for the August SAT. You're going to get some percentage question that tries to manipulate you, that tries to give you these kind of trap answers. There's going to be something probably where they ask you to change the percentage of a value and they don't give you the value. Honestly, there is no real difference between this question and the one we started the night with. This one. I know they look completely different. It's the same question. You're asking me to change something. You're asking me to understand something where in any math class in school, you would give me a number. You'd give me a number for X. You'd give me a value of the price of the stock in D dollars. You would give me the number. So in both cases, my brain does the exact same thing every single time is let's just make up the number, right? And maybe something as I read the question will tell me I can't make up the number in that particular case, but my default move is to get numbers in place of letters, plug points into equations, arithmetize, make up numbers. So that approach is really important for the SAT. The exact questions you get on the test will be completely different every time you take it. But there will be, I promise, a bunch of questions where they're asking you to change or understand values that they don't give you. Make them up. That will make it better. All right, I'm going to do a couple more of your questions here, but I think I'm going to call it a day here. I'm getting kind of tired and I'm losing my voice. And I think we will have some more of these before the August SAT. Let's see if there's any questions here I can quickly answer. Should you study vocab if your goal score is 730 to 740? Yes, at a certain point, you don't want your score to be determined by some random words you don't know. So use my website. Here it is, SAT Vocabulary, settletutoring.com/vocab. That's a good place to start for some words. Is it worth it? Well, I don't know. Probably not. It's certainly better to study the transition words, the grammar rules, and all that stuff, because that's going to be worth it. But if you're already scoring at like a 700, you're probably, getting those things right. So you got to get the rest. Yeah. But yeah, vocab is luck. XMDL, you're right. Vocab is luck. You might study 1,000 words and none of them show up. Yeah. Cool. Can I summarize the stream? What does that mean? Summarize what we did. So what we did is we talked about the August SAT. We did some questions together, and we came to the conclusion that even though these specific questions are varying difficulties, varying topics, they are the kinds of things that have underlying strategies that we are going to use for the SAT. So no matter what that August SAT looks like, it is going to involve the same basic skills that every other SAT is going to involve. Every practice test is going to involve. So hopefully, even if these particular questions seem new to you, they are showing you things that you're going to be able to use when you get to the real test. So that's the way to study, is you're not memorizing steps. You are learning moves that you can make to make certain questions easier, and putting numbers in an equation is a good example. Hopefully that was a good summary. I'm done with questions for today. Let's see if we can do another live stream, maybe over the weekend, maybe next week. I will post it like I did this one a couple of days in advance, so you guys know. And this one will post after we're done. It just needs to process, I think, before it shows up. I don't remember how long that takes, but hopefully that'll be soon. And let's see, vocab help I already said. If you want to do inference questions here, I don't have one ready to go, but you can do this. Boom, logic inference. Here, share, copy, boom, in the chat. That's a good one. I like that. I'm proud of that lesson. That's pretty good. And I have written some member questions that are about that. They're somewhere in here. Oh, they're in here somewhere. Maybe. Oh, there they are. Right, I'm staring right at them. Logic inference. There you go. Cool. All right. Well, feel free to, subscribe to the channel, comment with questions on any of the videos, especially as you're practicing things. Feel free to, ask questions if if my explanation isn't great. I'm always happy to elaborate. Yeah, I feel like this was productive. And I do not recommend. Ooh, one question I want to definitely answer before we're done. Do I recommend taking a non-linear timed test? Oh, non-linear. Okay. Uh, Oh, no. You're asking the same thing twice. So Joseph Newman, the nonlinear test, that is the adaptive test. That's the ones in Blue Book. So I think you meant the linear test. The linear tests are the PDFs that you can sometimes find if you scavenge the College Board website or click the wrong thing in the Blue Book app. Never, ever, ever do any test that's not one in the Blue Book app. The linear tests, the PDFs, they are using questions from the adaptive tests, and then they're spoiling those tests. And it's not like test 5 is spoiled by linear test 5. It's all jumbled. So if you use those linear tests, you're going to ruin everything else. So do not use those. Always stick to the Blue Book app. Very, very important. Cool. All right, so Preet, I still don't know what an Lamar Jackson edit is, but I'm looking forward to it. Send it to me, comment it, whatever it is. But thank you guys for joining. Remember, you can check out my channel for tons of free stuff here. If you do want to become a member, there should be a button somewhere near the top. There's a subscribe button. There should be a join button on most videos. Subscribe. I'm maybe not showing it because I am a member of my own channel. But if you go to my website, you can learn more about it here, channel membership. There's a whole thing explaining it. And then if you want to just test out the beta version of this new platform that's going to allow you to use those questions in a more interactive way, head over to testscoreprep.com. I'll put that link in the description and check it out. And hopefully we get some great feedback. And it's a work in progress, but it's an improvement. So a lot of options there. If you want some new questions, just go through YouTube or go through Test Score Prep and let me know and give me any feedback you've got. But thank you guys so much. Hopefully I will see you again before your August SAT. But if not, thank you so much for joining. Good luck on the test and just, keep studying a little bit. But by this time next week, you want to start stopping your studying. So you want to kind of ease off. No cramming the night before. Relax the night before. All right. Thank you guys. And I'll see you in the next one.